All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Joanne Whistler with Mary Beth Smith. We're co-chairing this committee, and we want to welcome all of you, and especially Sheila, for coming and speaking to our group tonight. Abby is a member of the League as well as a volunteer with Moms Demand Action, and we're going to let her introduce Sheila and their programs. But first, I just want to, as usual, remind everyone that the League of Women Voters is a 501c3 nonpartisan organization, that we don't support or oppose any candidates. Okay, Abby, I'm going to turn it over to you, and thank you.
All right, thank you, Joanne. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see the slides okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Yes. We at Moms Demand Action always like to start our meetings with our diversity, equity, and inclusion grounding statement. So I'm going to do that here as well. Our intention is to foster a robust presence of diversity, equity, and inclusion of and for all individuals and groups choosing to join our efforts. Our purpose is to work together to decrease gun violence and increase public safety across our nation. In our meetings and events and activities, we value diversity, we advance equity, and we demonstrate inclusion. We are a community. We are gun violence survivors, including victims and witnesses, change makers, and advocates who come together in partnership to work toward a future that is free from gun violence. And this evening, I'm going to give you a little introduction to myself, Sheila, and our organization. And then Sheila's going to share some information about community partnerships that we have in our work to prevent gun violence. And then we'll go over some action you can take and talk about how you can get involved in this movement, or if you're looking to, as a committee, move forward, some ways you could do that, forming your own partnerships. As Joanne said, I'm Abby Hersey. I'm a member of the League and have been since 2020, I think. I volunteer with the Communications and Voter Service Committees. I'm also a volunteer with Moms Demand Action, and I am the co-lead of our elections team. So I am in my very busy season right now, as you can imagine. Sheila is an Everytown Survivor Fellow. She's our Columbus Moms Demand Action, City Gun Violence Prevention, and Community Outreach Lead, but I'll give you a little more info about her here in a moment. Moms Demand Action, for those of you who don't know, is a grassroots movement of Americans who are fighting for public safety measures that can protect people from gun violence. We passed stronger gun laws. We work to close loopholes that jeopardize the safety of our families. We also work in our own communities and with business leaders to encourage a culture of responsible gun ownership. We know that gun violence is preventable, and we're committed to doing what it takes to keep families safe. We were founded by Shannon Watts, who is a mother of 5. The day after the Sandy Hook tragedy, Shannon started a Facebook group with the message that all Americans can and should do more to reduce gun violence. The online conversation tournament of moms, dads, students, families, concerned citizens, and survivors working together with our partners in the gun violence prevention movement to end this uniquely American crisis. Moms Demand Action has established a volunteer chapter in every state of the country and Washington, D.C., and is part of Everytown for Gun Safety, the largest gun violence prevention organization in the country with nearly 10 million supporters. As you likely know, Ohio has some of the weakest gun laws in the country. We don't have a law requiring background checks on unlicensed gun sales. A state law allows teachers to carry guns in elementary, middle, and high schools. And we have no laws prohibiting domestic abusers from possessing guns. We're ranked 30th in the country for gun law strength. And in an average year, more than 1,600 people die by guns in Ohio. There are obviously many things legislatively that could be done to help reduce this. But as you know, here in Ohio, this is an uphill battle, especially with the state of our maps, which I know the league is well acquainted with. So in addition to working legislatively with our representatives and supporting and advocating for common sense gun legislation, we also promote safe storage of guns through our Be Smart campaign. And we work really hard to elect gun sense candidates who are committed to gun safety. Like the League of Women Voters, we are a nonpartisan organization. Unfortunately, the one issue that we're focused on often becomes very partisan. And here in the state of Ohio, I believe all of our gun sense candidates this election are in one party. But we are willing to work with candidates from either side who commit to governing with gun safety in their policies. Another important piece of the work that we do that is not dependent on our legislation, I should say, are community partnerships with organizations that are working to prevent gun violence. And that's what I'm going to have Sheila talk to you about. Sheila is a mother. She's a gun violence survivor and a Moms Demand Action volunteer. She's an Everytown Survivor Fellow, and she's our Columbus Moms Demand Action City Gun Violence Prevention and Community Outreach Lead. She is a tireless advocate who is passionate about bringing an end to the epidemic of gun violence in our communities. She has built authentic partnerships with various community organizations who have a shared mission to save lives, prevent gun violence, and root out the systemic oppression that plagues our neighborhoods. The Columbus chapter of Moms Demand Action, we have local partner organizations that include We Are Linden, Mothers of Murdered Columbus Children, Listen Good Youth, and we participate in twice monthly Stop the Violence community walks that bring together many community organizations to turn community tragedy into action, listen to community needs, and provide resources, and to be consistent in our connection to the community. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Sheila to talk more specifically about some of the work we do in the community.
Thank you, Abby. And first of all, I'd like to thank you, League, all of you ladies that are here tonight. Thank you so much for the work that you do tirelessly. Thank you for the invite and giving me the ability to share some of the things that we have thus far been able to do in the community here in Columbus to end this senseless gun violence. We hear often that we just fail forward. We just keep moving forward. We know that it's a slow process. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, but we just keep going. So I just really like to thank you all, and thank you, Abby, for that wonderful introduction. So just a little bit more about me. I wanted to just share that I'm a mother, as she stated, of one son, and I have a bonus son, a bonus grandson, and I have so many nieces and nephews, and great nieces and nephews that probably range from, I'd stop counting at about 50. So they are truly my heart, and I fight daily, not just for them, but for every child that is in the community. In 2019, one of my nieces was unfortunately killed in the Dayton the 2019 Oregon District mass shooting. Of course, we were devastated, and we're still devastated, but it ignited me to a fight that continues today and will most likely continue until I take my last breath on this earth. to try to stop other families from having to experience what my family and the other 8 families and the families of those of the 27 that were wounded during that incident. It could have been prevented. And we know that there are certain laws and things that are in place, and voting matters. That's why I love your organization so well. And because voting, it's all interconnected. And so since then, I have just been, I reached out. I didn't know what to do. I knew that I wanted to do something, as some you ladies here today are, you have the same questions. What can we do about this alarming gun violence that's going on in our city and throughout our nation? Key voting matters. And I'll keep stressing that throughout my community. But what I did was I just turned that pain into searching on, I just kind of Googled, I don't even know what I Googled, but a Moms Demand Action meeting popped up. I do know what I did found. I found a clip from Moms of Brenda Moss, who spoke at our convention that year. And she spoke to a crowd of thousands of women that were there for their convention in Washington, D.C. And they had just brainstormed all weekend and, and was preparing to come back home to be able to implement some of those strategies to decrease gun violence in our local, in their local area. Well, they woke up, they went to bed with El Paso and woke up to Dayton. And so it was devastating, but she spoke so profoundly to the crowd, and I could hear it in her voice, her passion and love for every person that was in that crowd. Some of them were survivors, some of them were not survivors. And her words, just to kind of summarize what she said, was basically that, yes, I know you're hurt. I know you're frustrated. I know you're angry, and every feeling is different, but that should ignite us to knock on more doors. That should ignite us to make more phone calls. That should ignite us to advocate and push for stronger gun legislation. And so that's what I did. I went to a mom's meeting, and here I am today. So thank you. And we're just a small group. I just want to have a general conversation with you. But since then, with the encouragement and the powerful leadership that we have here at our Columbus local chapter, I've been encouraged. I just kept showing up. I just kept showing up. And so here I am speaking with you today, and was encouraged to take on the local city gun violence lead position. And that's my heart in community outreach, is being out in the community with people, sharing not only what moms can provide, but what other resources that are available to the everyday person in the community, so that they know that there are other options. So in 2020, there was August of 2020, there was an incident where a 2-year-old, I'm not sure if you all remember this, but there was a 2-year-old that was unintentionally killed by his 14-year-old uncle, who was babysitting him at the time. So this was, mishandling a firearm. Why a 14-year-old had that weapon at that time, I don't know. But it destroyed a family. It destroyed both, it was his uncles, or, so it was, it was heartbreaking, family trauma, just community trauma. It was a crisis. And so after doing some research on, just being on Facebook, I found that this group, Linden Community in Columbus, Stop the Violence, was going to have a community walk in honor of this child and just to bring awareness that we need to do something. You know, we in Dayton, Mike DeWine came and in the crowd, we chanted for him to do something, and we all know. If you don't know, we can share with you what he has done since then is done nothing but agreed with the extremists and implemented some not so favorable bills to decrease gun violence. So I was broken. The young lady had a GoFundMe page. I contributed so that she could help pay for her child's funeral. And then I just reached out to, I'm not sure if you all know, Miss Deborah Diggs. I had no idea who she was at the time, but I reached out to her on the post and asked if I could attend. And she was like, yeah, everybody's welcome. So I went to that march, and while there, I met a network of people from the police officers, fire station, fire department, civic leaders. I mean, there was just so many different people there. Care Coalition. I can't even really think of the Bright Side Academy. We were in their parking lot at Cleveland and 25th, and that's on the north side of Columbus. So we rallied. There was ages from 2 to 70, and we just did a little walk, probably about maybe 10 blocks or longer, and did a march. And then there was folks that had resources. I didn't take any information that day because I didn't want to go as a member of Moms. Although I was a member of Moms, I didn't want to go in a red shirt because sometimes people are defensive, or they have a red flag up like, oh, here somebody comes trying to come in and take over or whatever. So I just went as a concerned citizen because I truly was just a concerned citizen. And so having those meaningful conversations, I met Miss Diggs. She's along with you guys, the voter registration queen. I met Miss Adrienne Hood. She is a member of Ohio Families Against Police Brutality. I met Ralph Carter with We Are Linden, Mothers of Murdered Columbus Children. Melissa, ended up meeting her. And so we just so as we conversated, I talked with the leader. His name is Derek Russell. And I hope I'm not going too fast, but it was just about being there, being in that moment, embracing what I was feeling, and knowing that authentically other people were feeling the same way. They were tired. They were frustrated. What can we do to make a change? And so I had a conversation with Mr. Russell, and I asked him, after we talked a little bit, I said, can I come back and invite some of the moms to come back with me? He's like, oh, yes. He had heard about us. And he's like, yes, please come back. So just asked him what resources, could we bring? He said, just bring some snacks. So we went back. We showed up the next Monday. And we have repeatedly returned during that period from the rest of 2020, all of 2021, and we continue to be consistent. And each week we would talk with other community organizations, people that we could network with for moms, and be able to share our Be Smart message, which is our safe storage message. Other members of the community that we could have been able to go and share our message about moms. And then also, one thing that I really enjoyed was being able to share voter registration, and maybe we weren't supposed to do it, but we did it anyway. But anyway, so since then we've been able to go back and build those relationships. So turning community. So basically, Linden Community Partnerships, we have a shared vision of decreasing gun violence. So we turned that community tragedy into an action. We listened to their needs, and then we provided some resources. And we have consistently continued those connections. So it's gone from just marches to helping them with baseball this past summer, tutoring, showing up, helping them with some of their tutoring programs, continuing to go and support when they have trunk or treats or any type of activities throughout the community. You can go to the next slide, Abby. So that was the previous slide was where we started with some of the Linden community Stop the Violence. So in stating how that relationship was built, the main thing has been consistency, being authentic, and showing up with a heart of love, finding out what their needs are, and then just walking with them through the different areas. And as you talk with people, ask them questions about what their greatest need is for that area. And then as we built connections with the police department and with the mayor's office, being able to take that information back and share it with those. Because not just being able to take that information in or just hand them a slate card or hand them a resource. Sheila's always the last one at the end of the group because I truly want to be able to hear their heart. And typically on those marches within Linden, and we've spread out and gone to different places, someone more than 80% of them have been affected by gun violence. The kids just love it because after we have the marches, and I'm sorry, I skipped that part, we come back to the parking lot. Derek takes donations, and they would always either have a barbecue or here recently, because our gentleman that was doing the barbecuing, him and his kids, he got COVID and he's still trying to recover today. But he would have his huge RV out there and he'd barbecue hamburgers, hot dogs. So as we're walking, we would invite the community members to bring their kids back to the location that, to our sustained location. And then we could have more one-on-one meaningful conversations with them. So the slide that you see now, after we've built up the relationship with Linden Community Stop the Violence, expanded to tutoring, expanded to the basketball league and baseball. Rochelle O'Connor and her husband, Danny, they started a baseball league, baseball team, just teaching the kids basic baseball. Everybody's all about football, basketball, but there's some pretty heavy hitters with baseball, as we know right now. Baseball is a big thing, right? Right now. So the World Series is, right here upon us. So mothers of murdered Columbus children. So I would consider them survivor support for anyone that has lost a loved one in the city of Columbus. Although because of the relationship that we have with our Cincinnati moms, they have been able to go to Cincinnati and bond with some mothers that met them there at a Cincinnati Ride for Peace. And it's become phenomenal because based on that relationship, the Ride for Peace, they met a young lady there. And so just a couple nights ago, the Cincinnati moms wanted the Columbus moms to join them in a Zoom so that they could kind of share where they are now, where they've been, their journeys, sharing their pain, sharing their stories, and sharing what they would like to see happen next. So the picture that you see on the screen is a picture of this year, Melissa Thomas St. Clair, who is the founder of Mothers of Murdered Columbus Children. She got started at the same time as I did, pretty much with the Linden Community Stop the Violence group. She heard about the same incident that I did, and her and one of her former students decided to create this group so that mothers in the Columbus area would have some type of support. So over the past 2 years, because Moms Demand Action volunteers have been consistent and showed up and supported them, she has kind of just put me on her leadership board, and we hosted a gun violence memorial project last year, well, earlier this year in May. So the mothers, what the gun violence memorial project is it's an opportunity for family members, mother, fathers, be able to contribute an item to this 4 glass house, 700 window pane exhibit that is in the National Museum in Washington, D.C. So after the collection, she decided, well, for their learning, once a year, she'll have a Learning to Live Again outing for them so that they can learn to live beyond the pain. So this year she decided that she was going to take them to DC as a part of it, not just one piece of the trip, of a healing trip with a pastor and all. And she was adamant about me going with them, and I'm so happy that I did. But as you can see from the pictures, I'm standing there with one of the young ladies, and she's looking at the exhibit. Each individual window pane, for the most part, where you can see it's kind of blackened in, there's little objects that a person has contributed. It was very emotional. I met them there. They went a day ahead of me, and I met them there. It was very powerful. Almost, I can't articulate my feelings being there. I'm glad I went. I almost didn't go because I had plans to go away to California, and I had already scheduled my flight. But she was pretty adamant. She was like, "No, Sheila, because you asked us, you're the reason why we contributed." And that was an honor for me. I almost get teary-eyed thinking about it because they trusted us with their objects. And that trust came from, I'm sorry, y'all. Oh, I didn't think I would get, but this is the first time I've shared about that. They trusted us with their objects to be able to put them on display in the National Mall, in Museum, this exhibit in DC, so that people that come in there can see their loved one and the effect and impact. It's not easy to let go of those items, even if it is just to contribute it for a brief amount of time, because you can contribute it or donate. I mean, gift it, or they'll return it to you as well if you only want it to be on display for a while. But anyway, let me keep moving on because that has me a little emotional. Sorry about that. But so that's how we built that. They trusted moms because we built a relationship. We built an authentic relationship because we continued to show up. They've worked with Laura. They've worked with other members of Moms Demand Action, not just me, because everyone has different expertise. So some things that I may not know, Laura or one of the other members may be an expert or have more of a background, and so I can point them in that direction. They allow us to attend their quarterly meetings with the Columbus Police Department. and some of the other things that they've done. But that's just all, I mean, I can't tell it all, but it's built because we show up and we're authentic. If I can't say that anymore, stress that anymore. But anyway, so some tools and tips. No is your friend, not your enemy. We can't be everywhere, but we try. So sometimes we do have to say no if we don't have the capacity. And also we have to make sure that we do our self-care so that we're not overtaxed, so that we still have the energy to be able to give out of our hearts to those that are infected by gun violence. Be patient as you're building these relationships. I keep saying it over and over again. People ask me all the time. I just say, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up, and also rely on your internal partners within your organization, within your group. You may know somebody knows someone, and they may not think, but they'll have someone is in that Rolodex that and you can build upon the relationship from there. Abby, you can go to the next slide. Internal resources, I kind of touched on that a little bit. Using, for us, I have been able to grow in Moms Demand Action because of our large network across the nation. We have such a phenomenal resource tool that is available to us, and the people, and just so much information. Our platform of training is just phenomenal. Sometimes it's so much information, but you pick what works for you, what's best for you. Communicating, use your internal resources. Sometimes we think like Abby. She's like, Sheila, they want to talk about advocacy and community outreach. So she calls me up. Somebody else might want to talk about elections. I'm like, hey, because Derek and them, this group right here, this is a picture of all of us after a walk. So we have judges there. We have motorcycle gangs there. We have ex-gang members there. We have little kids there from the neighborhood. We have our own children there. We just have just a group of network. We have Care Coalition members there. The fire department is there giving out Narcan. So as you take the time to talk with each one of them, so you have that group there, but within your own League of Women Voters organization, you have an internal resource that you can use. And communicating. Sometimes we may not always know what to say. So we can go and we can just show up, and then, once we've made that connection and ask them what their needs are, then as we're listening, then we can learn how to best approach the members in the community and the self-care. Abby, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Some of this you may already know, characteristics of an effective partnership. Someone that's committed, diplomatic, dedicated, professional. All of these, this is not a be all end all. My Twitter handle is driven for change, the number 4 change, and being open-minded. We all have in our community, we have, and I think in every community, where a lot of times we are a product of our environment. So if we've been raised a certain way, then that sticks with us. It follows us. So being open-minded to new and other innovative ideas, and being able to learn. Leadership skills, being a good listener. One thing that I would say is somebody that's consistent, and they have a passion for helping people. And you can go to the next slide, Abby. I don't want to run out of time because I wanted to leave a little bit of time for for questions. I will share this, that the time frame that we walked in the Linden area, the 2 zip codes that we focused in, we were able to see a 39% reduction in crime rate in those zip codes. Now, Columbus overall, they did go up, but in that area, the crime did decrease. And if we could only have those walks, and sometimes people say, oh, well, I'm tired of marching. Well, it takes all of us. It takes all of us, and it takes every avenue, working with the kids, trying to get somewhere where, work with them on de-escalation. That's another focus that we would like to see coming forward, is teaching our kids to finding a way to be able to collaborate, organizations that are going to be able to teach our children de-escalation tools and tips. So finding partners, who do we know? And then who's missing? This is a list of some. Your personal network, city council. We've been able to establish relationships with the city council members here for Columbus City Council. Community development offices, your public safety director. Because we consistently go to these events, we meet the public safety director, we meet the city council members, they know. And police, sometimes I'll say to Assistant Chief Potts, I'm like, what can we do? What can we do to help? And she's like, y'all are everywhere. What can we do to help you? So community organizations, faith-based organizations, schools, your educators, we are slowly getting into where we're able to get that door open for Columbus City Schools to get our Be Smart message out. We've been working on that since last year, and it's been a slow process, but we're finally starting. We've been able to get in some doors to talk with some family advocacy groups. We definitely want to increase that. So last weekend, Deb Grayson, our statewide Be Smart lead, I had signed us up through a church, and I don't know how I got on that list, but we received an email, and I said, this sounds like a great opportunity. We should go and share Be Smart. I know she face painted a bee on the side of over 100 kids' faces single-handedly, because Sheila is not an artist. But medical professionals, talking with your medical providers, national organizations such as you are, social sororities and fraternities, libraries, neighborhoods, recreation centers. So all of those places are where you can find partners or people that you can collaborate with, so that you can step out and do some of the works that you're thinking about, that you would like to get involved in. So to get involved, of course, we have Moms Demand Action events, gun sense candidates. Of course, right now, that is it. Election, that's all about elections. And, I will have to share, Tim Ryan is going to be in our community finally, after several, So he's coming to the Linden area next week, next Tuesday, 9:00 at Bethany AME Church. Abby will be able to share more information with you about that. We do have a flyer that we're going to be sharing. It's something that we wanted for a long time. And so and those little pieces of building relationships, that's how we have gotten where we are today, and we want to continue to build up on that. And I hope I didn't talk too long, but that's about it. There's so much to share, and it definitely takes all of us, just as every little piece of the pie, and it just adds up when we show up. And I thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm definitely happy to answer.
I have a question. So here at the league, we do a lot of advocacy on our positions at the Ohio State House. And I was wondering if there was any like particular legislation that you're hoping to see put in place in the near future, or any like maybe negative legislation that you would want to warn us about, because we are always keeping our eye out for that. And I know with the lame duck session coming up between the election and the end of the year, we are all on high alert for a number of issues, including women's reproductive rights. But I mean, I'm not sure if there's something that you are watching when it comes to that particular session. So that was probably like 4 questions in one, but feel free to answer what you'd like.
Sheila, you want me to take this one?
Please, but I
Okay.
know we are. Whew,
Yeah,
lame
so
duck.
we are keeping an eye out as well, but the fact of the matter is they did a lot of damage recently and don't have a whole lot more that they're looking to do right now. We have permitless carry, we have school teachers armed, and obviously we would like those things to not be the case, but that's not going anywhere right now. Another thing that we are constantly advocating for and hoping to see are extreme risk protection laws, sometimes called red flag laws, that allow, if someone is in crisis or has made some threats, family members and people involved in their life can help get that weapon secured and removed from the premises temporarily. But again, given the current makeup of the legislation, we aren't super hopeful that that's going to be happening anytime soon, unfortunately.
Okay,
I,
Mary.
I have actually 2 questions. One's general, one's more specific. Watching the news tonight, and they were talking about I don't know if it's issue 1 or 2, which allows judges to consider public safety when they consider bail for someone. Would there be a way to, and so one of the persons that spoke about, and I believe he was a sheriff, was like, it's so frustrating because, someone goes out on bail and then they commit a crime again, and he cited domestic violence, and then they go beat their wife up again. Is there a way to almost attach to that and say, well, if we had, say, red flag laws, is there a way to kind of jump on that and say, we're talking about the same thing here, but I'm not sure if is there a way to advocate for that? So you kind of include this conservative, let's call it a conservative position of the bail situation with the common sense gun safety situation. Any ideas on that?
So theoretically, I mean, they attach all sorts of ridiculous things together, and certainly these seem like a natural fit. Obviously, there's not going to be any time to do anything about that for this particular ballot measure. But going forward, I think, what we are constantly saying to legislators and what we encourage others to say is, we may not agree on everything, but we can agree on some things. We want people to be safe. We want people in dangerous situations to be safe. And one way to do that is to ensure that people who have proven themselves dangerous, statistically, I'm sorry, I'm having a tongue twister. Statistically, the outcomes for people in a domestic violence situation where there is a gun in the home are very poor. Like, those outcomes are very poor, and that's widely known. And so I think you can encourage the folks who are writing these things to find a broader solution. Let's link up these things that seem like they might make sense.
So if in terms of, and this maybe goes into my general thing, how do we as a league support that? Do we encourage folks to reach out to their representatives with this approach, or how do we?
I think that's an excellent way to go about it. If you can provide I know for Moms Demand Action, we often will provide like a form way for people to reach out to their legislators so that they
Mhm.
don't have to do the hard work of writing their own letter if they don't want to.
Mhm.
And kind of provide some statistical information. We will often do like fact sheets on an issue that we can provide to folks who do want to write their own letter and say, here are some statistics so that you can put those in. And while, you know, a legislator who is definitely not interested in this information isn't going to care how beautifully you put it. They do pay attention to how many people contact them about an issue,
Right.
as I'm sure you're aware. And so having a campaign where folks reach out to their legislators, asking about this or advocating for this or suggesting this, can definitely help the cause.
Okay.
I would also say, if you can, read the bill, educate yourself, because the little sound bites and things that they spew in 30 seconds, there's a lot. That reform bill, they've been working on that for years, not just here, but across the nation in different
Right.
states.
Right.
So they're, read the bill. There are still certain parameters within that bill. It's not like they're going to be able to just release any and every one. There's certain crimes, there's certain things that they'll have to follow. What they're trying to avoid is that some of these low level drug crimes, where someone might have had, I don't know, a small amount of marijuana or a small amount of something, and then they're just throwing them in jail. The higher felons in those different crimes, these are not a part of that. And that's the thing that they're not sharing when they have their little 30-second sound bites. They just want the community to believe that, oh, they just want to do this negative and just let everybody out. No, that's not it. So my recommendation, and that's what I even share with my family members, is if you can take the time to read it, but try to do a little bit of research so you can get that background, and then you can make your own decision, informed decision based on what you've read, which is the truth. And then you can tell them to go fly a kite somewhere. I made my own decision.
So maybe our role as league members, again, how do we support this? Educate people, have forums to, like you said, Sheila, if folks aren't going to take the time to read it, and there's a lot of jargon and legalese and stuff in there. So we can say, okay, here's what this means.
Yeah.
I guess.
And I think
And
the
there's
league
some
does a
news.
good job of that. I've worked on some of the election day phone banks where we're kind of having to give the basics of an issue that we clearly have strong feelings about, but the league does a very good job of being diplomatic and presenting educational information that people can then use to make a decision. And I've had conversations with voters on those phone banks where they're like, well, that's ridiculous. I didn't know that that's what that meant. And so I think that sort of helping people understand it in a way where they still are making a fact-based personal decision is helpful.
Thanks.
I just would like to, go ahead, whoever that was.
Go ahead, Joanne. I'll follow
Okay,
you.
all right. I just wanted to ask Sheila about the meetings that she has in the neighborhoods and communities during these walks where she's asking people, what do you need? I was wondering if you could just give us some examples of the kinds of needs that you hear from people. Are they community needs or more individual?
A little bit of both. Wanting to see a change in their community, and then also it could be anything from a medical need. It could be anything from not knowing that I'm a felon and I didn't know that I'm out. I didn't know I could vote. Educating them on that piece. It could be where to get food, free food. It could just a gamut of different things for their individual household. Some things can be they're not aware that there's survivor support groups out there for them, that the Care Coalition can provide some trauma counseling. And so we have that type of information for them. So it could be anything for okay, so what, and then we try to empower them because we can't be there every week. So empowering them to be able to advocate for themselves when we're not there.
I have a question. I think I heard you say this, but I want to double check and then ask you a question about it. Did I hear you say that you saw a 37% reduction in gun violence? Did I hear that correctly or not?
You did hear that correctly. We
Okay.
saw a 39%
39.
reduction in the 2 zip codes that we were walking in for those 18 months. So
Okay.
we were there every Monday.
Okay. Walking around the
Walking.
neighborhoods. It wasn't an organized walk, right?
It is an organized
Okay.
walk.
Okay.
Yeah,
Every week.
it is. Yeah,
Gosh.
it's an organized walk. He would give us a specific location. And typically for that time frame, it was Linden, different areas in Linden. And so, and we would switch from one side of the block to another. Well, sometimes we're on the north side, east side of Cleveland, sometimes on the west. So there's different areas.
Yeah.
So the organizer he picks the location. We show up, walk from about 6 to 7, and then from 7 to 8, we invite everyone to come back, have that conversation and food with them. And food always makes everybody happy. So
Yeah.
Sure does.
So the walking, do you think the walking accounted for that reduction? It was the conversations really that
I
you
think
had
it
with
was the
community.
presence. I think it's the presence of knowing that someone cares, which empowers them to also feel like they can do the same thing. So being able to, they see us coming into their neighborhood. So that gives them the empowerment to make those phone calls if anything is going to, happens in their neighborhood. But I think our very presence in the neighborhood consistently, it encouraged the people to either move to another area or just decrease whatever, stop them from whatever they were intending to do.
And probably those programs that you're involved in terms of the baseball and the tutoring, probably contributed to that as well.
I think, well, the baseball just started this year. I just think that sometimes when you have a presence in an area, it deters people from committing crime.
I think that's fascinating. And I think that statistic needs to be out there, so, and I assume you've shared it with the city government, the police, et cetera, but that to me
Oh,
is.
they gave us the numbers. We got the
Oh, they
numbers
gave
from
you the
they
numbers.
gave us the
Okay.
numbers. We got the numbers from them.
Okay, and they're attributing that to your presence, which I think is fascinating, and a blueprint perhaps for expansion or going into some other areas as well, which I assume you are thinking about doing. Yes or no?
Well, what we do as moms members is we support them in their efforts. If we could get 5 more Derek Russells and Ralph
Right.
Carters in the city to cover, because I mean they are going to start having them on my side of town because I live out east, and I'm like, can my side of town get some love? Because we need it over here too. But it's just a matter of having the people that want to do this, because it takes a commitment.
Sure.
And we rotate, sometimes our members. This year what he did, and I think he was just trying to give people a break. I didn't like it, but it's not my program. He did twice a month as opposed to every Monday. But so we'll have to see what those stats are, at the beginning of next year. But I would just love to be out there, but there's only one of me. And
Sure. So I'm trying to understand how all of this is working and how you're achieving these results. I'm sorry to monopolize
Oh,
this.
no, you're fine. I just don't want to run over your meeting time.
No, the Derek Russells, are those neighborhood people that kind of come to the surface and begin to take a leadership role?
Eric Russell is an ex-gang member that he said he wreaked he wreaked havoc in that area and in the short north. This is his way after he continues to mentor young men and young girls, but he mentors, he works with the courts, he works with other organizations. So this is his way of giving back. He's a
Okay.
credible he's a credible messenger, and they have other credible messengers that walk with us.
Okay,
the
and then there
people-
are community folks who come to the surface and become leaders in doing some of these things. Yes.
Well, what Derek has done is establish that coalition, a network of people through, well, a relationship with the police department, the fire department, care coalition. And so he asked everyone to come out every week and bring their resources. It's open to everyone.
But I
Okay.
do think, the key, Kitty, is that you don't want to just show up in somebody else's neighborhood
Right.
and say, we're going to start walking around and that's going to improve things. You have to find the people who are already in that community that you can support, and you show up consistently to build that trust. And it, like Sheila said, you have to be patient. This is not a quick thing. And you just have to be consistent. You have to show up. And then you're just supporting somebody who knows that community better than you ever will.
Which is, which makes sense. I mean, I wrote down consistency, authenticity, and showing up
Yep.
and listening. I think all of those to me are essential for building trust and partnerships. So I was just trying to get a better sense of how all this works. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope that we answer your question.
I think you did. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, well, we are at 8 o'clock, so we do need to end soon. I didn't know, Abby, whether you wanted to add anything about ways we could collaborate with you.
There are all sorts of ways. I know I had talked with Joanne previously. If you enjoy phone banking, we're currently doing elections phone banking, and we're not going to ask you to do that because, like I said, our issue ends up being a little more partisan than the league. But we can always use phone bankers to help call members or people who've expressed interest in volunteering with us, or we want to invite people to meetings, things like that. We can always use more phone bankers for sure. I think the walks that Sheila was talking about are getting ready to wrap up for the season because we're headed into cold weather. But when those start back up, we would love it if league members wanted to join us for those walks, and you can bring voting information and anything else you want to get out there. You can do voter registration. And again, just be consistent presence in the community. Those would be really great ways to get immediately involved. But if anything we talked about this evening sounds especially appealing, please reach out to me or Sheila. I have provided both of our email addresses, but we would be more than happy to connect you with the right person in the right spot.
Could I just ask Sheila?
Abby, I wasn't writing fast enough. I wrote down your email address, but I didn't write down Sheila's. I couldn't write fast enough.
Barb, we're going to send an email out after the meeting, kind of like summarizing. And so I have in here, abbyhersey@gmail.com, momsohiosmb@gmail.com. So we'll send those links out for everybody and kind of what we talked about. That's what we're hoping to just kind of make sure that we all have that information so that we can support Moms Demand Action in a way that's appropriate for us. We don't want a bunch of white ladies showing up on some kind of, neighborhood meeting without invitation, without support. So we want to be able to support the best that we can and kind of use our skills as league members to
Yes.
support the mission.
The
So sorry.
sisters from the, wait a minute, I want to say it right, Dominica of Peace.
Yeah.
They come out every Monday. When we don't see our sisters from the from the parish, we're like, where have y'all been?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think when it comes to the walks and other community events that we do, we as Moms Demand Action volunteers are kind of discouraged from doing voter registration. Like, we can talk about issues and candidates, but they prefer that we not do those activities because the way we're financially structured. So that is another way that the league could be really helpful in helping get the vote out in different areas of town.
That's right up our alley.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Thank
If
you,
I had a
ladies.
nickel for every time I was at a League of Women Voters event next to the Moms Demand Action table and vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have clipboards.
Yeah, that's right. We sure
Reports
do.
for the win.
Yep.
Thank
Gosh.
you, ladies.
Thank you. No,
Well,
thank
thank
you so
you.
much for speaking with us.
Yes. Thanks to
Thanks for all
everyone.
you do.
I hope I
really
didn't talk too
appreciate it.
fast.
Yes.
Nope,
No, it was
you
great.
did
Thank you for
great.
the information.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's good
Mhm.
information.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good
Thanks,
night.
you.
Night.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Okay.